Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about physical security. Before we get on to that, it would be good to have a little bit of background on Genetec as a company, what it is you do.
Indeed. Genetec, we're an innovative software solutions business, so we're a technology company. We develop a broad range of solutions that essentially encompass physical security, intelligence and operations. Our flagship product, Security Center, it's an open architecture platform and it unifies IP-based video management, access control, automatic license plate recognition, communications and analytics. We also develop a large range of cloud-based solutions, which again, to help improve security and contribute to new levels of operational intelligence.
Okay, and is that just, I mean, is that for business, all manner of businesses? Is it mainly around sort of critical industries, just flavour of where you're focused?
Yeah, so it's across the board, really. Obviously, we have strengths in certain sectors. So a real focus for us on currently is the data centre and technology media. But we do go across all verticals. It's very much suited to the enterprise. So where we do have multiple sites, large systems, you know, that real need for physical security. But things are evolving, you know, especially with digital transformation. So we're seeing that actually our market's changing slightly, and it's based on the changing requirements of those customers by utilising that or leveraging on that physical security infrastructure to give them some insights.
Okay, yeah, and I think you recently carried out a survey looking at the changing role of physical security. So it'd be good to understand what, I presume you had some headline findings and then some other bit, but just good for you to share those main findings with us. Yeah,
I mean, I think, you know, taking into account the last couple of years, you know, it's been a challenging couple of years with COVID, lockdowns, businesses obviously having to work remotely. You know, we've seen that the world has changed, the way that organizations operate is starting to change a little bit. So I think that the key one we're really seeing is that enterprise transformation. So where the physical security system is becoming central to those business digital transformation plans. So that's one of the real key ones that we're seeing coming out of the back of, well, I mean, I know COVID's still here, but out of the back of lockdowns, etc., as people are going back to work, is that digital transformation. Again, related over the last couple of years, and I think also, you know, it's pretty relevant now, the cybersecurity aspect of things, because understandably organisations are now under greater pressure to scrutinise their cybersecurity measures, standard certifications of their physical security system, and also the supply chain ecosystem. And obviously, with what's currently going on in Ukraine, I think, you know, we thought kind of coming out of the back of the COVID crisis that we'd be able to focus on things a bit more. And obviously, when we see what's happening in Ukraine, that's just escalated things even more. So again, cybersecurity is quite key off the back of that. And then cloud adoption. So again, this has been really driven through the last couple of years, where now we're seeing more organisations are looking at and adopting cloud-based solutions to trial those new applications. So they're the real three key changing roles that those real focuses at the moment is that enterprise transformation, cybersecurity, and the cloud adoption.
And just quickly on that enterprise transformation, is that the challenges of if you like, managing a mobile workforce? You I guess once upon a time, theoretically, everyone just piled into the office. You knew they were all there, end of story. Now they might be working from home 3 days a week. Is it just increasing the difficulty of securing, making sure the right people are in the right place at the right time? Is that what it's down to?
It very much is around that. I mean, we're going back to a new way of working, but I think also over the last couple of years, you know, with limited access to sites, to your facilities, I think it made a lot of organisations start to question whether the way that they were managing their systems on site was working or was could evolve to remote working, and you know, access to server rooms, access to equipment was more and more difficult over that time period. So not only are organisations now trying to understand who uses their facilities, but also trying to put implement architecture, implement procedures and policies that allows them to essentially manage their sites remotely, so there isn't that requirement to have to be on site to manage hardware, software applications, or security.
And on the cyber security one, I can't remember the exact stats, but I'm pretty sure that even now the majority of data sort of breaches or cyber security issues are internal, whether it's an accident or malicious, but all the sort of focus is on all the people from outside the organization trying to do stuff. But are you beginning, as this survey maybe suggests, to see people taking more interest on that internal threat, hence more interest in physical security?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I think the last figures I saw, something like 56% of breaches, data breaches, were actually internal data breaches. So I think the perception is that everything comes from the outside, and it's somebody sat in their bedroom who's carrying out most cyber attacks. But yeah, the insider threat is real and is probably the biggest risk that we have at the moment. Obviously, physical security is there to help mitigate against that risk. The key bit that we see, though, is very much cyber security and physical security are treated as two separate things. And we very much see that it should be converged. It should be treated as the same. So it should be in that same discussion. So when we are talking about security, it is both the physical and the cyber in tandem, so that when we're looking at how we can implement measures to protect a business or protect a data center, that we talk about both at the same time with the same teams, because ultimately there is a link.
Okay, and in terms of sort of addressing that, I know you, the company, you've introduced Streamvault Edge, and my ears immediately prick up at the word edge because everyone's talking about that. But it'd be good to understand what you maybe define by edge, but what this new product is aimed to focus on. Yeah,
so at Genetec, we've always been at the forefront of cloud. So we've had a cloud offering for at least 10 years, but we've always made sure that when we provide, so on-prem is without a doubt still our main offering, and obviously we're seeing the adoption of cloud, gaining pace year after year. In an ideal world, we'd see that everybody would go full cloud straight away, but the reality is that we're really taking a hybrid approach to this. So what Streamvault Edge gives us is that ability for organizations to start to migrate to the cloud. It's a device that essentially is, it's not your typical server where we'll supply a server and it's fully loaded with software on it. It's essentially a device, a pretty dumb device. It's Linux based. And the idea being that it's the connector to allow you to essentially utilize some cloud processes, so some cloud services, and have a mix and match. So you load onto that particular unit what you need from an IoT or a security perspective, but it's all pushed from the cloud as far as applications, etc. A bit like your iPhone. It's designed really to be a connector of devices, and not necessarily that key, that core component to a system. It's a connector. So we see this as being a great way of customers being able to start to leverage the cloud, whether it be for cloud storage or connectivity to sensors, using the cloud, whilst at the same time giving you a powerful system that has less requirement for, again, that on-site management. The idea being that it can all be managed remotely. It doesn't need somebody physically on site to be able to manage that.
Okay, and I mean, in terms of the feedback you've had, most of these solutions you test with customers before sort of general release, and then clearly you'll have some feedback. Just wondering what the feedback was, either in that sort of beta testing phase, or is it too early for real customers to be giving you feedback as well?
I haven't been involved in the deployment of the product, so I'm pretty sure that it's been beta tested within North America. Obviously, that's being closest to where our headquarters in Montreal. They are releasing the product, officially releasing it at ISC West. We'll see it in the US, North America first. Then I suspect towards the middle of this year, we'll start to see it come over to the UK. So I think, although I can't comment on how the products performed through the beta testing, we do know that there is a big need for a device like this. The conversation we're having more and more now is about IoT, less about physical cameras or access control doors, even though those sensors in themselves are still IoT devices, but we're starting to see the scope broaden as we, like I said, when we're looking at this digital transformation, we're not just talking about cameras, we're not just talking about access control readers, you know, we're talking about building management systems, air conditioning units, server cabinets, servers themselves. So, you know, it's about having the ability to connect lots and lots of sensors together, and essentially ingest that data, process that data, and give some real insights to an organization.
Okay, so I mean, that's one trend around the IoT. I think I'm right in saying that you've sort of uncovered in your sort of research some other insights or observations around physical security, and maybe you'd like to say a bit about the sort of visitor management and intrusion detection piece, if you could.
Yeah, so I think one of the again, going back to kind of the last couple of years, especially when we look at, say, the data center environment or any highly secure environment, you know, these facilities typically, yes, you've got a normalized attendance from certain people. So there's certain staff that will go there every single day. So there are people we know, but then there are a lot of people we don't know that need access to these facilities. And I think the typical way was very much a manual process, you know, especially in a co-location. You'd have organization A that would need an engineer to go to one of their data halls. And the only way that they could get access, if they didn't have access to that particular facility, was a manual process, you know, emailing somebody within a department within that, typically within security, hoping that person picks up an email, hoping that person you know, deals with that quickly. And so if you've got a major issue or somebody needs to get on site really, really quickly, you know, that didn't really lend itself to give somebody almost immediate access. So when we now try and take that out where we've got remote workers, not just the person who's trying to get access to the site, but also the people that might need to authorize access or do the checks to make sure that that person's got the required credentials to be able to access at the site. You know, the facilities, the ability to do that isn't really there. So we actually have a product called Clear ID that we've released, which enhances that. So it essentially allows, let's say I'm an engineer that needs access to a data hall. It allows me from wherever I am to request access through a secure portal within the cloud using Azure, and then it will notify essentially people responsible for those areas of my request. They can accept, deny it immediately, and then if I'm accepted, I'm immediately given access through the access control system as where I need to go. So it's kind of that improving the process. So it's got the added benefit of the flexibility of people being able to apply for access wherever they are, access being granted really quickly, but also as a service to those clients, so those data center clients. It also allows those data center clients themselves to manage their access while still maintaining that level of security. So what we're doing is actually taking a lot of the process away from the data center themselves and putting the onus onto the tenants to say, okay, now you can control your own access. Yes, we'll still be that authorizer as far as making sure that, you know, they meet the requirements to get on site, but we're gonna give you a better service by doing this. So that's around kind of that flexible working, where we've got visitors, contractors coming on site, we've got deliveries, and even some staff that typically, you know, only work in London. They might need to go to Tokyo, Switzerland. You know, it gives them the ability to get that access really, really quickly at all hours of the day. So I think that's the first bit about that kind of controlled, that remote application process of being able to improve the ability to access sites quickly. We then have a look at the new technologies that we're seeing coming. So, and this is again on physical security more than anything. We always say kind of take a layered approach to security. So you have to look at each layer of your facility in its own right, define what you need for each layer. The outside layer being the perimeter. Typically we've seen we'll have an intruder detection system on there. Historically, it's been fence line systems, so fence line detection with a lot of cameras, but we're now seeing new technologies such as LiDAR units, which allow us to cover more area, get more accurate data using analytics, which gives us an enhanced fence line security solution, but at the same time reduces costs. So it's really about having that platform that can evolve to ingest data from these new technologies, which ultimately solves a solution, provides a better solution, but reduces costs at the same time.
And you mentioned the sort of CCTV stuff. So I'm guessing video, the world. I mean, we're obviously talking on video today, but
Yeah.
Video is front and center. So video analytics, I'm presuming, are having an increasingly important impact on helping with the physical security puzzle.
Yeah, completely. I mean, although analytics, it's fair to say that sometimes it's oversold. If we understand that it's a tool, it's not a solution to remove that physical presence of a person to make a decision. Well, you don't let computers make decisions for you because they can make bad decisions. But what it is a tool to assist you to focus on what's important. So, I mean, traditionally, we've always seen the use of analytics for perimeter detection. Is an object might cross the fence line. It's working out whether that object is a threat or not, because it could just be a fox, it could be a cat. We need to understand, is it a human being? Is this a real threat? Analytics have really improved, but not just the quality of the analytics and the amount of analytics that are available, but also the move from maybe server-based to edge-based, because analytics, they're complicated algorithms, they need a lot of processing power. So typically to process a lot of cameras with analytics, you'd need quite a lot of servers to do that. So that increased costs, and obviously from a sustainability perspective, obviously that's also ongoing costs as well. But once we can move to edge-based, essentially we're giving that camera has the power to process those analytics. So we're not having to invest in additional hardware to do this or additional infrastructure. Essentially, our cameras will do this job for us. And it's a great tool for understanding what's important and what's not important when we're on the day-to-day operation. But like I said, for traditional security uses, we've always seen them for perimeter detection, left bags, detected objects, or objects removed. But again, through that digital transformation, we're leveraging on these cameras, we're leveraging on this infrastructure, we're leveraging on these analytics to give us more information about kind of people counting, how many people do we actually physically have coming into the facility, area occupancy, who's using what areas within the facility. And we can even go as far as kind of using, again, certain technologies such as LiDAR to start to look at how do we secure cabinets, how do we use analytics, LiDAR, access control to ensure that John the engineer, when he accesses my data hall, is actually accessing the right cabinet. So that's using LiDAR technology, that's using access control to understand who's going in there, and then the analytics to say, okay, well, if this doesn't match with this, and therefore I'm going to generate an alarm, I'm going to tell you what's going on.
And you've referenced, as we've talked, the data center industry a couple of times, but I'm just wondering, in terms of physical security, we're familiar, as you explained, there's the perimeter fence, there's various biometrics, and before you sort of get anywhere near the actual data halls. But I'm just wondering, are there any particular, other than what you've outlined, physical security challenges that the data center industry faces moving forward, whether it's driven by, increasing regulations around security, or is it very much the same as other industries, just more so because what's inside the data center is perhaps a bit more critical than your average office?
Yeah, I think the challenges are there actually for data centers more than most. Data centers are essentially critical national infrastructure, and we know that critical national infrastructure is regulated, especially when we look at physical security. Data centers are the same. It's that layered approach. We have to look at each layer of our facility, kind of what do we implement in each one of those layers. And I think that's key. When it comes to compliancy, the value of what a data center holds, the risks that are attached to a data center. The first bit is for those security teams, and again, I'll go back to not just the physical security, but also the cybersecurity team. They need to work together to understand that layered approach. What do we need to do? What are our risks at each layer? Then look at that convergence. We need to ensure that our physical security systems don't have an impact on our cybersecurity. And to do that, really, it's again coming down to those regulations. It's ensuring that when we look at the supply chain and we select a supplier, that we do our due diligence. We ensure that our suppliers have been through external auditing. I've seen a lot of accreditation certifications that are self-certified. It's our belief that external auditing is key. So when you are selecting suppliers, you are selecting solutions, that you really need to look at those cyber accreditations and certifications. And what I'm talking about here is making sure that manufacturer has been through like SOC 2 Type 2 audits, and they've passed that, or that they've had UL 2900-2-3 accreditation. Because what that gives you is that peace of mind that, you know, that company, its products, its processes have been through a rigorous audit, not just from a cyber security perspective, but also from a data integrity perspective, from a privacy perspective, and they've met those requirements. So you've got that peace of mind that you can trust that provider is going to essentially fall in line with what your own requirements are as far as accreditation, standards, policies, etc.
Okay, and maybe in just finishing, I mean, you've alluded quite powerfully there to the importance of finding the right and trusted supplier for physical security solutions. But any other piece of advice, you know, for a company? I mean, I suspect, whether it's through watching this or just more generally, more and more companies are becoming aware that maybe their physical security solutions that they kind of think, yeah, we've got that one covered, maybe aren't quite as good as they thought. How would you suggest they start? I mean, do they immediately bring someone in like yourselves and say, look, can you help us? Or are they able to take some kind of steps themselves, you know, a bit of an audit before they decide where to go? What advice would you give?
Yeah, so my advice is, take a step back, you know, have a look at what your requirements are, have a look at your facilities, understand your risks, you know, get those audits, have a look at the systems you've got in place, you know, interrogate your current system providers, make sure that they match your requirements, you know, that they take cybersecurity and cyber hygiene as seriously as you do. And then from there, you know, ultimately you do reach out to those manufacturers, and you ask them to prove their worth. Ultimately, it's about trust. You have to trust that who you're working with, you know, does fall in line with your own policies, your own plans moving forward. And I think, again, just going back to those current global events, cybersecurity and trust in the supply chain now is probably more important than it ever has been. Don't rely on your manufacturers to come in and tell you that they can be trusted. You have to take a step back. You have to have a look at it, your requirements holistically, and then do your research. You know, every manufacturer that has been through these audits, you know, they're going to shout and scream about it, because it's not just a costly process, but also it's a challenging process. And when you come out the back of an audit and you pass it and you get given, say, SOC 2 Type 2, it's something to be proud of, because now you can shout from the rooftops and say, look, we as an organization can be trusted. Our products can be trusted. You know, they meet the 5 pillars. So we're in line with your organization. So that's the advice I'd give, considering where we are right now, which is, you know, I think anybody who holds data, anybody who's got information that is valuable, you know, they're high risk at the moment.
Okay, that's brilliant. I mean, it's been great to chat with you, Nick. So thanks very much indeed for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks.